Good evening, everyone. My name is Wayne Oberg, and today I'm going to present to you the lesson of unemployment. The duration of this lesson is 30 minutes, not the whole class period, which would be used for self-work and other things that I might have planned for them during the day. It's meant for a 12th grade level. The description of this class is 3 EL students, 10 proficient English speakers, and 13 in total. The reason why I added 10 proficient English speakers because it's kind of a group lesson, so it benefits from inclusion quite a bit. 7 women, 6 men, again, what I created myself, vary levels of socioeconomic status. The student profiles I have is students may have a personal connection to content. Students need assistance in recording information, so like writing notes, etc. Students will need assistance in pronunciation, something that's very common with EL learners. Students will need clear and short explanations because of their trouble maybe understanding the vocabulary and the words. The purpose. Since the students have recently or will soon enter the workforce, unemployment is something that every child will go through in their life, and it is important that they understand the basics of what they're going through. The big idea of this is kind of worker recidivism without the negative context of recidivism. Just trying to get back into the workplace by understanding kind of like the different types of unemployment and whatnot. The standards are 9-12.3.1 of the Social Studies Standards and ELD Standard number 5. Analyze basic micro and macro economic concept. Students at all levels of English language proficiencies interact with grade level words and expressions such as ideologies and social political, and movement, social construct, authority, social justice, and equality. The objectives of this lesson is students will be able to synthesize an insightful real-world analysis of the primary types of unemployment through critical writing. The student profile objectives would be very similar, just with a little bit help with recording. Students will be able to synthesize important information of the primary types of unemployment. So it's very similar in that regard. It's the same end goals, but just how it's get there and how they will get there will be where most of the accommodations come in. Evidence of meeting results is insightful real-world analysis on exit slips is clear and well written. Both people, whether or not they have accommodations now, will still write an exit slip. Now, the only difference is like the student profile information, it would be written on a graphic organizer, and I wouldn't take that. And I wouldn't take the exit slips either. I would just quickly look at them, check them off in the grade book, and that would be that. I'm going to use direct and interactive instruction as my teaching style. The procedures, which is concept attainment, is set a number of chairs equal to the number of students in a circle. Think of jobs that require, this is all pre-class, that require a high school diploma to get hired. Tape a different job to every seat. Print off 2 jobs that require a 4-year degree. Keep these hidden for now. Set up a song that's funny, appropriate, and plausible and educational. This would be the song to play musical chairs to. When the class starts, hook and hold, tell students to get ready for musical chairs! And that'll hopefully get, everyone excited. Ask students if they know how to play musical chairs, if not, explain. Play 3 rounds. Allow, 3, stop and go, stop and goes. Allow students to joke about their jobs after each round. Maybe discuss a little. Keep the activity fun. And explain how this in the perfect economy everyone can find a job. Since everyone has a chair, no one's getting kicked out. Play another round. Explain the term unemployment. Take out a chair, play another round, say that this is the natural rate of unemployment. Telling that the person that got out is retired and is no longer looking for work. Or that's kind of the natural rate of unemployment in a very basic sense. Then the idea of this is they go through several more rounds, and then I would add more chairs. I would add a chair in the middle for as a higher form of education, and I'll use musical chairs to explain every type of unemployment. It's a very resource. It's very easy for students with little resources to do, our teachers, and will take a while to explain something that can be explained in 3 minutes and direct instruction, but I believe that the way I would teach this would be memorable for the students and that they would remember it for much easier. And I think it's a way that also kind of isn't too reliant on the language barrier, because even when I'm explaining these, they have something to relate it to. I can use gestures, I can slow down my explanations depending on the expertise of the classroom or depending on whether or not one student's getting it or not. Just one of those things that teachers do on the fly. And then to summarize, they will summarize on the graphic organizer, which contains 5 terms, a definition of the terms for the accommodations. The students with accommodations, there will be a definition of the terms right next to the actual term word. So like, for example, natural rate of unemployment, healthy employment, in quotation marks, that's usually around 4%, shows that the economy is healthy and evolving, and then students will have to write an example, and if they want, they could use musical chairs to do that. There's nothing against that. And they would use this graphic organizer for notes, to study, whatnot, and it's a very effective tool. I tried to do an advanced graphic organizer, but I had trouble doing that. Now for the accommodations for each student and how I'm planning on having this instruction fit their needs. Student number 1, Carla Sanchez. Use visuals in the classroom, vocabulary, and academic. I believe the musical chairs is more than enough of a visual to work with their needs. Allow for peer interaction. In the lesson plan and the procedures, I do have plans where they would actually talk to each other and they're around their peers their entire lesson, interacting with them. So, I mean, it's not going to be one of those lessons where I'm going to be shutting down sidebars all the time. It is something that they will talk about often. Provide modeling of instruction. If they are having troubles with musical chairs, I can always model how to do musical chairs, which is the point of asking that in the beginning. I don't anticipate that anyone would not know how to play musical chairs, but I'm always ready for the possibility. And if they don't understand any of the employment structures, I have 1.5 million ways to explain it. It's a very basic concept for teachers to know, and it's very easy to create examples of. Provide explicit instructions. The instructions are very explicit and it's very simple. So I don't feel like I had to modify my instruction anyway for that. Use adapted grade level text. This is very simple, very basic. Terms and economics. It's really hard to get more basic than that. So trying to move it down a couple grade levels, it's quite literally not possible. Provide advanced organizers, webbing, outlining, graphing, Venn diagram, etc. This is where I had trouble trying to model my lesson for. I had to eventually just use a normal graphic organizer because I couldn't find a way to make this work like with a Venn diagram or anything like that, or with graphs. It's mainly just trying to get them used to the vocab terms, so when we get to it in future sections, they know exactly what I'm talking about when I say cyclical and employment, when I'm talking about aggregate demand in the business cycle, and later sections, so they know exactly what I'm trying to refer to. Just setting up that scaffolding in place. And I might not even get to that stuff in the high school level, but they will hear about it in college. Almost guaranteed. Use short, simple sentence structure. I believe that using short sentences is essential, whether or not they have this in their accommodations or not. using long, complex sentences never helps really anyone understands from my point of view and anyone else. Pre-teach functional language stems for social interaction. I believe I have done this as well. Provide high-frequency vocabulary instruction. They will hear me mention these vocab terms multiple times throughout the lesson, so I believe I'm doing that accurately. Chunk student reading assignments. I don't have any reading assignments that is involved with this, so I don't believe I have to do that. And there's nothing to do with reading, really. It's all direct instruction and whatnot. Provide oral assistance by reading words, phrases, parts, or whole passages, instructions, etc. The entire plan of this is me to vocalize the instructions. It doesn't really work well if I just write all the instructions on a board. I don't imagine it would ever work well if I try doing that. Shorten assignments. There is no assignment that goes with this. Minus the exit slip. It's already a very short assignment. Provide highlighted texts. No text that goes with this. Instruct students using a variety of strategies, music, songs, and dramatization. The entire activity is a song. So using that with the lesson would be kind of moot. Use simple sentence stems. This is something that I'll also do naturally throughout the instruction. Extra time to do it. It is kind of a group activity, and I don't think adding extra time would help the students in any way with the actual activity because it's just moving around in a circle waiting for the music to stop. So there would be no benefit from adding a minute or two to when the music stops. Oral signed administration. I believe I also do that. Okay, some of the other students, Yetunde Olselina. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that. And a lot of these are the exact same, so I won't go to explaining for each single combination and how I will work for my lesson. Allow for peer interaction. I already explained how I would work that into the lesson. Provide accommodated and/or short answer assessments. What they do at the end is kind of a short answer assessment after writing an example, and the students without accommodations also have to write real-world examples. So it's kind of very similar, and they already have to do short answer assessments formatively. I'll use grade adapted level text, something that I'm already doing. Use short, simple sentence structure. I already talked about that. Chunk student reading assignments. Talked about that. Provide oral assistance. Talked about that. Shortened assignments. Also talked about that. And again, a lot of these are the exact same, so how I'm going to model this instruction is going to be a lot of overlap between these three students. Demonstrate pronunciation of social academic language. The one word that I think they're going to have the most trouble with might be cyclical. I have trouble with it. Cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment, sorry. And I can always write down the pronunciation on the words, like how the word breaks down and whatnot. That wouldn't be any real issue. Provide word banks. They're graphic organizers, somewhat of a word bank. You have the definition right next to this, the vocab term. So that would be their word bank. Extra time. I've talked about that with the previous student. Math manipulatives doesn't really apply in the social studies. Content support. I'm more than willing to help support in content and provide extra support in terms of writing and whatnot. Next student, Simologit Kuo. And again, forgive me for the pronunciation. I wouldn't get that wrong in class because I'd be able to ask them ahead of time. some Mr. Kapoor, sorry, is a very advanced student and only has a couple of accommodations. Use complex sentence stems. That one's kind of tough because there's not really many complex sentence stems to use in this assignment. Dictionary, I can always provide him with the dictionary. At this point, he would probably have its own, I would guess. But I'm planning on always having a dictionary in the classroom. I use it myself very often. And content support. Again, same thing with the previous students. Now, as for the level of each student, the proficiency on core is at an extremely high level. So the accommodations I have to do with him are very slight. The proficiency of Miss Ulisania is intermediate, so I have to work with her a little bit more. And the student, that would be, I don't want to say the word difficult. Most, need the most assistance would be Miss Chanchez, which is as the proficiency of a beginner. And that's going to take a lot of, and I might have to do one-on-one instruction with her too. And it might require that, where I have to go more in depth and whatnot, and that might become necessary. It probably would, and I would have no problem doing that. Like I said, the lesson's for 30 minutes, which they would have other things that they could work on, and I could work with students that were having trouble one-on-one easily during this time. The reflection of this process, I thought was pretty good overall. I think there should be more variances with accommodations depending on going from math, science, social studies, elective. It's, every student had the same accommodations over each section. So, and some of these sections, nothing was even listed underneath that specific content area. I mean, only the first student, I believe, had accommodations over all the areas, and I just made the assumption that all those accommodations were carried over and it was maybe just a clerical error. And it was also a little bit weird that each student had pretty similar what's the word for it? End of grading period averages in all the categories. So I believe the accommodation sheet should be worked on a little bit. Like in social studies, each student, I believe, got an 84 on average. Yep. So that should be a little bit better. Overall, it's a very lucky classroom. All the accommodations, for the teacher, I mean, a lot of the accommodations aren't hard to work with, and a lot of the accommodations as well are very similar to other students. So instead of making 24 changes, a teacher can endure taking 2 or 3 and still be perfectly proficient in the class. Proficient teaching the class, I mean, not in the class. And in the process of adding vocab terms, using slower, using sentence stems and all that, a lot of it should kind of, it does say in the accommodations, and I know we have to do that. What I'm trying to say is the level on which we do that is kind of left up at what the students are feeling in that day. As a teacher, you have to look into your environment and see what's working, what's not, see if you need to slow down, see if you need to speed up. And I think that's extremely important, and which is why I didn't mention some of that stuff in my lesson plan, because I was always told you don't mention stuff like that in a lesson plan. You just, and like in the procedures, for example. I mean, the objectives were a little bit different, but it's still roughly the same end goal. There's still higher levels of thinking. Evidence of meeting the desired result is different, and it's kind of a little bit more guided for the student profile objectives, which I also believe is important. Overall, I think the process is very similar to the normal process, which I appreciate. And I've learned a lot from doing this process, even just once, on how to help students that need accommodations and how to work that in the lesson plan, so I really appreciate that. Anyways, I hope you had fun listening to my presentation. Have a good day.